All right, welcome guys to the final video of this series where we're going to see how to actually register our user model and our listing model to the admin panel. So this is going to be a situation where we have our user model and all that data is on one database, and then with our listing model, all that data is in another database. So we're going to see how to have multiple databases get registered to our admin panel. So one thing to note before I dive into this is I have my backend running and my database running, so make sure you're doing the same. So I'm going to close this up. And first I want to just dive into the Django documentation real quick. So if you search up on Google something like Django multiple databases, you should find this documentation here. So this is something that I was working through before when we were implementing our multiple database support. And then if you go down, eventually you're going to reach a section which goes into how to deal with registering these models to the admin panel when you're dealing with multiple databases. So here we are. You're going to reach a section which is exposing multiple databases in Django's admin interface. And this right here is going to show us how this works. So Django's admin doesn't have explicit support for multiple databases. If you want to provide an admin interface for a model on a database other than that specified by your router chain, you'll need to write custom model admin classes that will direct the admin to use a specific database for content. And then model admin objects have 5 methods that require customization for multiple database support. So here are those 5 methods that we need to customize in order for this to work. So let's take a look at this. So you make a class, you can call this whatever you want. In this case, they called it multiple DB model admin. And then this inherits admin.model admin. And then here we have this using, and then this using is what we're going to end up inputting in order to have our admin panel use the correct database. So in our case, we have a database called users and we have a database called listings. So that's where this is going to come into play so that we know the correct database to use. And then we have these different methods. So we have the save model. And then here they also have comments that makes this nice and easy to understand. So this tells Django to save objects to the other database. So that's because this is what it is right here. So let's say if here we put something like listings, then the save model would tell Django to save objects to the listings database or users database. So that's how that would work. And then you just put this object.save and you set using equal to self.using, where self.using is going to be this right here, which is going to be the database that you specify. So this way, whenever you perform a save in the Django admin, it's going to save that model to the correct database. So that goes for the listings and that goes for the users. And then we move on to the delete. So here, this tells Django to delete objects from the either users or listings database in our case. So if you wanted to delete a listing from the admin panel, if you're an admin user, then this right here would ensure that you're dealing with the listing database. And then that would ensure that this delete happens successfully. Then here we have this get query set, and then this tells Django to look for objects on the users or listings database in our case. So this is going to make sure to retrieve when we, let's say, click on listings in our admin panel, we're going to be getting the listings data from the listings database. Same thing with users. When we click on that, that's going to make sure to get the correct data from the correct database so that we can see it displayed in the admin panel. Then we have the form field for foreign key. So this tells Django to populate foreign key widgets using a query on the users or listings database in our case. So then a widget in Django is just a representation of an HTML input element. And then anytime you just need to populate a foreign key widget, then you would just use the correct database. So again, users or listings in our case. And then finally, we have this form field for many-to-many. And then this will tell Django to populate many-to-many widgets using a query on the users or listings database in our case. So pretty similar to what I explained here, where a widget is just Django's representation of an HTML input element. And then anytime you need to populate these many-to-many widgets, which is just going to be some kind of input field inside of the Django admin, then it's just going to make sure that this widget is using the query that's on the correct database. So either users or listings in our case. So that's an overview of what we're going to be doing. And then also there's support for tabular inlines as well when you're dealing with multiple databases, but we're not going to be diving into this. In our case, we're just going to be dealing with this here, the model admin. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So first I'm going to go ahead and start working on the listing. So I'm going to open up this listing, admin.py, and then I'm going to remove this comment, and I'm going to make a new class. So this is going to be called listing admin. And I'm going to pass in admin.model admin. And then we need to define that using attribute, which is going to be listings, because inside of my core, settings.py, just as a reminder, we have users and listings, which is what we refer to these databases as. And then below this using, I'm also going to have some additional attributes that I pass as well. So one is going to be my list display. Here I'm going to have a tuple with the ID, the realtor, the title, and the slug. So this is going to be whatever's displayed in that sort of list view in the Django admin. Then I'm going to have list display links. These are going to be the ones that I can click on to actually view the details of the listing. So I'm going to have the ID be clickable, the realtor be clickable, the title be clickable, and the slug be clickable. So all of them are going to be clickable. Then I'm going to have list filter, where here I'm going to pass in realtor. So the list filter is just going to give me a sort of box that's going to have different realtors, and then I can click on one of these to filter all the listings that come from a particular realtor. Then I'm going to have my search fields. So these are going to be the fields that I can search for inside of the search box. So these are going to be my title and my description, as I think these ones make sense to be searching for. Then I'm going to have my list per page, which I'll set to say 25, and these are going to be all my attributes. Now we need to have those 5 different methods, and these are going to be the ones that we're customizing. So we're going to have that define save model, just like we saw inside of that documentation, and then that takes in self, request, object, form, and change. Then here I'm going to do an object.save, and then I'm going to set using to be self.using. So this is going to be using this right here, which is my listings database. Then I'm going to go ahead and customize my delete model. Here I'm going to pass in self, request, and object. Then I'm going to do an object.delete, and I'm going to pass in using equals self.using. So this way, whenever we delete our listing, we're going to be using the correct database. Then I'm going to define my get query set. This is going to take in self and request. And then this is going to return, then super dot. So we're going to access the super class and call its get query set method, pass in our request, and chain on a dot using, self dot using in order to use our database. Then we're going to define that form field for foreign key. And this ended up autofilling a bunch of stuff. I don't want it to autofill. So this is going to take in self db underscore field, request, and then a keyword args. And then this here is going to return the super class, and then I'm going to call the form field for foreign key from the super class. And then this is going to take in the db field, the request, and using is going to be self.using, and then we're going to also have the keyword arguments. And then finally, we have one more method to customize, and that's going to be our form field for many to many. This is going to take in self, db underscore field, request, and our keyword args, just like we had with our form field for foreign key. And then I also have an extra W here, so let's get rid of that. And then I'm going to return the super class, and I'm going to call the form field for many to many from the super class. So form field for many to many. And then I'm going to pass in db underscore field, request, using is going to be self.using, which is going to be this right here, just to be clear with that. And then I'm going to pass in the keyword arguments. And there we are. So that's all we have to do in terms of customizing these methods. And the final thing we have to do is just register this to the admin panel using an admin.site.register. And then listing, which is my listing model that I have to import. So I can do from .models, I can import listing. And then I also have to bring inside of here my listing admin. And there we are. So now this is going to register this to my admin panel. And then we can even check this out. So if I go in here, I already put in the URL for localhost 8000/admin/, so I can just search for that. I already made an admin account in a previous video. In my case, I called it Bryan at listings.com. So this is the admin account that I created. So if you don't know how to create an admin account when you're using multiple databases, then please go back and check out the previous video where I ended up showing this. Otherwise, you can just continue on, and now you're going to see this listings here. So this is something we registered. So now if I click on this, there we go. Now I can see my 2 listings. So I see the ID, I see the realtor, I see the title, and I see the slug. Now for whatever reason, these ones aren't clickable. Let's see if I did something wrong here. This should be list display links plural. So that was my mistake. So now these should all be clickable. So I just need to refresh. There we go. So now I can click on any one of these. And now I only have one realtor account that actually submitted listings. So why don't we go ahead and submit another listing? So I can have Postman open. I can log in with a realtor user. Now I don't remember exactly what the other realtor user I registered was. Maybe it was Tom Smith. I just want to double check. Yeah, so it was Tom Smith was my other realtor user. So if you want another realtor user, it's also just as easy as opening this register realtor account endpoint we made, and then you can just register another realtor user. But here we are with another realtor user. So I can grab the access token from Tom Smith, and then I can open up my listing, and then create listing. And then inside of my headers, I can go ahead, pass in this access token for this realtor. And then as for this data here, I want it to be something a little bit different. So I'm not going to be super creative. I'll just do something like 15 North Woodsman Lane. I know, very creative. Don't want to spend too much time on these sorts of little details though. So I'm just going to be calling this 15 North Woodsman Lane. And then I'll keep the city state the same. Why not? Maybe change up the postal code a little. And then as for the price, maybe this one is going to be a cheaper home. Something like that. This one might have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And then here I can do something like decent home with great neighborhood and schools nearby. Something like that. And then the images I'll keep the same. It'll be for sale. Maybe this will be a townhouse or something. So I'll set townhouse. And there we go. I'm going to set it to be published. Send that off. There we go. Listing created successfully. So now if I go back to my admin panel and I refresh, now I see a Tom Smith realtor who submitted this listing here. And then now I have this filter. So if I go back here, so that was this list filter by realtor. So now what this lets me do is I can filter by the realtor Bob Smith. So now I get these 2 listings, or I can filter by Tom Smith. And then I can also click on here, see the details of the listing. And then I can edit things from here. So I can really edit any of this data. So let's say here, if I want to change the zip code to have a 7 here, I can freely do that and save. There we go, it's updated. So now if I go back here, I'm going to see a 7 at the end of here. And that goes for any of this data. I can even delete this listing. So as an admin, I have full control over all the listing data in my database. But I currently don't have any control over the users in my database. So that's another thing I need to make sure I have control over. So let's now go back to our code, and we're going to do the same sort of process, except now inside of our user app in that admin.py file. So to make this a lot easier, so we don't have to redo literally all of this, why don't I just go ahead, copy this, go back into here, and then paste all that code in here, and then we're going to tweak this to fit with our user. So first thing I want to do, maybe just get rid of this import here, as we're not dealing with the listing. So instead we're going to be dealing with our custom user model. So I'm going to import that. So from Django.contrib.auth, I'm going to import get user model. And then user is going to be get user model, which I'm going to call. And then this, instead of being called listing admin, I'm going to call it user admin, since that's a name that makes more sense. This is going to be using my users database instead of my listings database. In terms of my list display, I'm going to be displaying, let's say, the name, the email, and the ID. So I'm going to get rid of this slug field. So there we are. So ID, name, and email are going to be my list displays. And then my list display links are going to be the same. I'm just going to have all these be clickable. I'm not going to have a list filter. And then for my search fields, let's say I can put something like name and email as my searchable fields, and then list per page I'll keep as 25. So now our save model, this is going to be the exact same, and this is just going to tell Django to save objects to the user's database, and then the get query set's going to be the same, and then the form field for foreign key is going to be the same, and then also the form field for many-to-many is going to be the same. But the one that's going to be a little bit different is this delete. Because remember that right now our listings are tied to a user. So the behavior that I want is that when a realtor user gets deleted, we also delete any listings associated with that user. So we need a way to deal with that. So the approach that we're going to take is if I open up my listing models, So here we have this realtor field, which is an email field, and this email field matches exactly with the email of the realtor user that posted this listing. So what we can do is we can create a sort of helper method where then from here, we can grab the email of the user that's about to get deleted. We can pass this to a helper method, which is then going to delete all listings that have that email. So basically with our listings, the realtor field, if it matches this email, that listing is going to get deleted. So that's the way that we're going to have this working. So maybe the first thing I can do is I can create a sort of helper method. So I'm going to create this inside of this listing app. And then I can put this inside of another file, something like, let's say, extras.py, just to keep things a little bit more organized. And then inside of here, I can create this helper function that's going to do this for me. So I can define a function. I can call it something like delete realtors listing data, something like that. And then this is going to take in the realtor email. And then what this is going to do is it's going to check if listing.objects.filter, where realtor is equal to realtor email.exists. Whoops, didn't mean to open that. There we go. So if this right here exists, we're going to continue on, and then I also have to import my listing model. So right at the top, I can do from .models import listing. So now I can check if there is a realtor with this email that's being passed in here. So again, from this admin, we're going to call this function passing in this user's email that's about to get deleted. And then that's going to be passed in here as a parameter. We're going to check, is there a listing that has this email? If there is, if these exist, then we're going to delete all of those listings that have this email. So I can easily do that with listing.objects.filter, where realtor is realtor email.delete. And just like that, we can delete this. And then also just to make clear what's going on, I'm also going to add some print statements just so that we can really see what's happening when this delete happens ultimately. So back inside of here, before I do this object.delete with using self.using, so this is going to delete my user. Before I do that, I want to grab the email. So I can actually do that with object.email because object is the current object, which is the current user. So I can grab the email field from that. And then I can call that function, which I have to import into this file in order to call. So I can grab this from listing.extras is where I created this. So in this extras file, and then I'm going to import that function, which I called delete realtors listing data. And then also this ended up importing very strangely. So let me try that again. Delete realtors listing data. Yeah, again, it's importing very weird. Okay, let's get this right. So delete realtors listing data. There we go. That's what we want. So now that that's imported finally correctly, I just have to now call this. So delete realtors listing data, and I just have to pass in that email. So the email of this realtor that is about to get deleted. So let's go ahead and add some print statements just so that we can really see what's happening. So here I'm going to have delete model email, and then I'm going to print email. So that way we can see the value of this email and confirm that this in fact is the realtor's email. And then after I do this object.delete, I'm going to print calling delete realtors function. And then after this deletion happens, I'm going to say finished delete realtors function. So that's going to be the print statements in here. Then inside of my extras, so this delete realtors listing data, I also want to have some print statements in here just to make it very clear as to what's happening. So I'm going to make a print statement right before here, and it's just going to say entered delete realtors function, just so that we know we entered this function here and that all that worked correctly. I'm going to have a print here if we enter the if statement, so entered if check. And then also after this delete here, I'm also going to do another print, which is just going to say deleted listings for this realtor. So that way we know that this deleted successfully. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to open this up, and let's now try to delete a user. So I'm going to first of all refresh this, and I still have to actually register my admin, so let's make sure we also do that. So right at the bottom here, I can do an admin.site.register. And then user and user admin, just that way we can actually see it in our admin panel. So now if we refresh, now we have this user accounts. So I can click on that. And then right now I have my admin account. I have this John Doe account, which is a normal user. Then I have this realtor user and this realtor user. So let's see what happens if I delete my Tom Smith realtor user. So I can scroll down, I can click on this delete, and then yes, I'm sure. And there we go. We don't have Tom Smith anymore. So let's see if that listing data got deleted. So if I go to my listings, I only have my Bob Smith listings. So that actually ended up working. And if I check out my print statements, this will also clarify things. So here we have that print for delete model email. So that's this print right here. Then we print the email. So that was tomsmith@gmail.com. That's the user that we were deleting. Then we have calling delete realtors function. So that's printed right here. And then we continue off in this delete realtors listing data. So in my extras file, we then have this entered delete realtors function. So here we are, enter delete realtors function, entered the if check, that's right here. Then we went and deleted all that listing data associated with that realtor of Tom Smith. And then here we have deleted listings for this realtor. So that was after this happened. So that means it got deleted successfully. And then we have finished delete realtors function, which is right over here, finished delete realtors function. So perfect. All those prints hit off, everything worked. We managed to both register these two models to our admin panel, and we managed to have the behavior where when we delete a user, we also, actually I should say, when we delete a realtor user, then we also delete all listings associated with that realtor user. So now we have 3 different account types. And I'm also gonna just quickly delete all these print statements just so we don't have them. So there we are, it's gonna clean things up. So we have 3 different users now. We have a normal user, which that's a user that would just be browsing along in our application, checking out different listings and contacting these realtors. And then we also have the realtor users, where their responsibility is full CRUD functionality over listing data. So they can do things like posting listings, getting listings, updating their listings, deleting their listings, and so forth. And then we also have our admin user, which has full control over the application data. So now they can do things like delete users, delete listings. They can even create listings if they want. Here I can click on add listing and create a listing tied to a particular realtor. So the admin has full control over this functionality. And then what we can even do, we can also test out deleting, say, Bob Smith. So if I delete Bob Smith, yes, I'm sure. So Bob Smith is now gone. So listings, there's no more listings associated with Bob Smith and no listings in general. And I can even delete normal users. I have full functionality over the data. So this normal user, I can delete him. Yes, I'm sure. And there we go, that user's gone. And then what ended up happening in our code in this extras, we hit this if check. We checked if the realtor field for a listing has that realtor email. In that case, it didn't for the normal user, so we never even entered this here. So that would be the behavior for a normal user. So there we are. Now I can easily go back into Postman. I can create more data if I want, but I'm not going to waste time doing that. So I just wanted to demonstrate things with the admin panel here. So now we have a full functioning real estate app. And of course, you can add a lot more features to this. You can add a front end to this to make it have a nice user interface, but this is all I really want to demonstrate in this video. So now you know how to deal with the admin panel when you have multiple databases and how to have the data in those different databases registered to the admin panel. All right, so before I put this video to a wrap, there's just some little tweaks I want to make just to make this project a little more finalized. So one in particular is when I go into this admin panel, so I'm going to log in with my admin account. So right now, I can view my listings. I can also view the user accounts. And then also I added in some of these after I ended up deleting them. But one problem I have is if I go to this groups, then I end up getting the settings databases is improperly configured. So this is something I need to solve here. So in order to solve that, it's an easy fix. We just have to open up our user app, the router.py file. And then there's another app that we have to add in here. So group admin is something that's already registered by default, but we do need to accept the app where this comes from, which is the auth app. So if I include that in my route auth labels inside of my auth router, then now we should be able to access this groups. So that was just one little issue I wanted to deal with. And then the other issue is inside of our listing app. So I'm going to close this up, open up my listing app, views.py. So it's inside of my manage listings view. So previously we made this retrieve values function. And then one problem that we have right now is, let's say if an invalid price is passed, then we return a response here. Same thing with the bedrooms, we return a response, and same thing with the bathrooms, we return a response if this conversion happens to fail. There's nowhere else where we return the response, so these are the only areas where we have to address this, because ultimately in our post and our put method, we're utilizing this function. And then we're returning the result of that in data, and then let's say we're trying to extract the title from data title. But if this right here returns a response, then this right here is going to fail. So we need a way to deal with that. And I think there's a pretty easy way to deal with that. So going back to this function, so retrieve values. So a nice approach that we can do is I can have this say return -1 if the price is invalid. I can have this right here return -2 if the bedrooms are invalid. And then I can have this return -3 if the bathrooms are invalid. And then what I can do is where I utilize these, so in the post and the put, after I can do some if checks, so I can check if data is equal to -1, then I can return that response. If data is -2, then I can return the other error response, and then if data is -3, then I can return the final response, and if all of these pass, that means this data was retrieved successfully. So that's an approach that I can use. So all I have to really do is go up to this retrieve values, find this first return, so from the price being invalid, I can cut this, I can have this one return -1, and then I can go down, and then inside of my post, right here with this if check, then I can return this error response if I got -1. Then I can go back. So we handled this first one. So now let's handle the bedrooms getting converted to an integer. So I'm going to cut this response. Here I'm going to return -2 in this case. Then I'm going to go down. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste inside of this elif check, fix up this indenting. So there we are. And now we just have to handle this final case. So now I can go up. So here we are. We're trying to convert bathrooms to be a float, which could fail because that could result in a value error if you pass something invalid here. So I can just go ahead, cut this from here. I can return -3 in this case. Then I can go down, find my elif. So that's right over here. And paste this in here, fix up the indenting, and there we go. So now this is going to be handled correctly. And then because the put method also uses this retrieve values method, I'm going to go ahead, copy this whole block right here, the if elif block. I'm going to go down to my put. So here's my put. And then right after we retrieve these values, I want to do these same checks. So I'm just going to do these checks here. And then if they pass, we're going to continue on with this request. So I'm going to save that. Then we just have to test out that this is all in order. So I'm going to go back, open up Postman, and then I have to log in with a Realtor user. So I'm going to log in with this Tom Smith account, send off this request, grab the access token, and then I can test out either with the create listing or the update listing. I'll do, say, the create listing. So in this case, I'll maybe pass some different values here, something like 20. These right here don't matter too much. But the main thing that we're going to be testing is the invalid input for the price, the bedrooms, and the bathrooms. So first, let's do the price. So if I pass something like hello, that's going to result in a value error. And then I have to just go to my headers, make sure that I have the correct access token. Save that. So now let's go ahead and test out sending this. So there we go. Price must be an integer. So now you're not going to get a 500 internal server error when we do this. So now I can switch this back to what it was. Next, let's test out the bedrooms. So for this, again, I can pass something like the string hello. I can send that off. Bedrooms must be an integer. Perfect. So I can switch this back. And then we can test out our final one by passing something like this, sending that off. And there we go. Bathrooms must be a floating point value. So now we've handled those errors correctly. Because what would happen before, if I go to that retrieve values method we made, so let's say right here with the bathrooms, if I just returned the response, then passed the error, the message doesn't really matter, have some kind of status. So if I had it like this, save that, and then I pass an invalid bathroom number, or value I should say, something like this, and sent that off, instead we get this 500 internal server error. So by handling it this way, we don't get that issue. So I can just revert this back. And there we are. Those are all the changes I wanted to make. So with that, now I can go back to the video. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, please hit that like button. It goes a long way to help a channel like mine grow and get recognized so others can benefit from the videos I release as well. Also, I have links in the description that you can check out. I have one for an e-commerce course that you can check out if you're interested in learning to develop an application like that. I also have a link for joining my Web Development Kings Facebook group. That way, if you want to personally ask me something, then you can go right ahead and do that and I'll happily help you out. It doesn't cost you anything, so if you're scratching your head about something, then you can go right ahead and ask me to help you out. Only questions I probably won't answer are if you want to help you build some kind of personal project, as I don't quite have the time for that sort of thing, but anything else is fair game. You can also post something in the group itself, that way other developers in the group can help you out with something as well. The group is all about growing your expertise as a developer, so if you're interested in that, then go right ahead, click that link in the description, and join the family. Also, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notification bells, that way you don't miss out when I release a new video, and I'll see you in the next one.